Hey guys, Victor here, coming at you again with another deck profile, and for today's video we're going to be doing Darkworld Fiendsmith, which as a deck is, I guess, pretty similar to the Danger variant. However, instead of focusing entirely on looping our opponent's hand away, instead we're going to be building up a board that has basically like multiple layers of interactions that our opponent is going to have to try and fight through, and then maybe along the way we'll loop a card or two, but for the most part that's not the goal of this deck. It's basically just to build up a big board, and then hopefully our opponent can't push through it. So with that out of the way, let's jump straight into it. As always, you're going to be starting off with the monster lineup first, and as far as like the Darkworld portion of the deck is concerned, it's basically unchanged compared to like the Danger version. We just have made one small minor change, but we'll get to that when we get to that. But even so, for the 3 of Darkworld monsters, we're playing 3 Genta, Gateman of Darkworld. You discard it to search the Gates of Darkworld, and then the Gates of Darkworld basically just gets your entire engine going, right? As you have a free card to banish, which allows you to draw, discard a Darkworld card, and then when this card is banished, it comes back. So you just, you get free value pretty much all the time. So you got to play 3 of it. Then to accompany our 3 Gens, we're playing 3 Snoww, Unlight of Darkworld, which when it's discarded is able to search your deck for any Darkworld card. Really good, really straightforward. And then for the final 3 of, we're playing 3 Reign-beaux, Overking of Darkworld. So when this one's discarded, it searches your deck for any level 5 or higher Darkworld monster except itself, which means that you're going to be able to access cards like your OG grapha and Sillva. But the main value from something like Reign-beaux actually comes from it being in the graveyard, as it's able to bounce back any of your level 7 or lower Darkworld monsters that are face up on the field back to your hand. And this is basically just like a great way of being able to just replenish your resources by being able to add back cards like the Genta or Snoww or Sillva or just whatever, right? Yeah, like just the amount of like resources that you generate by the cards that you're able to add back and like just continue to play with is just unmatched. So you gotta play 3 of this, and then that's it for the 3 ofs, and then for the 2 ofs, you're just playing 2 grapha, Dragon Lord of Darkworld. So its discard effect honestly doesn't matter. It's just a pop a card, which, I mean, in most situations is pretty much never going to come up, especially if you're going first. But its graveyard effect is actually far superior to Reign-beaux because it's able to bounce back any Darkworld monster except itself. So yeah, you can go like grapha, bounce back Reign-beaux after it bounces back like a Genta or whatever, and then much like with Reign-beaux, you're just replenishing your resources to continue to play on throughout the rest of your turn. So yeah, 2 grapha, perfectly fine as is. And then for the 1 ofs, we opt to knock down Sillva down to 1, so it's not a big priority anymore to hand loop the opponent, right? And that was actually one of the main reasons why we were playing more than 1 Sillva. But now it's basically just like another Darkworld card that comes back. And if you really wanted to, it doesn't even really need to be Sillva, if I'm being honest. You could play something like Beige or Gold or whatever, but the main benefit from Sillva is that even though we're not hand looping our opponent anymore, that doesn't mean that we don't want to do it sometimes, right? And we're still able to do that with the 1 Ceruli Guru of Darkworld, or depending on if it's your opponent's turn, you can usually like your Fusion Grapha to discard the Sillva, and then they'll have to discard, or not discard, but they'll have to get rid of 2 of their cards in their hand, and it's just really overwhelming when it actually is able to resolve. But we don't need to focus on that card anymore as much as we used to with the Danger version. We're literally just there to, if it comes up, it comes up, and if it doesn't, it's no big deal, right? But that's it for the Darkworld monsters. Then for the other cards, so we can actually play hand traps now, at least to like a lesser extent, just because we don't have to focus entirely on cards like the Danger monsters resolving and like potentially hitting these cards. But yeah, 3 Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, literally only here to stop the Mole Charmies, and that's the only hand trap that we're going to be playing. That's literally all it's there for. If we get by a Charmy, the game is basically over, right? Because they're going to be getting a bunch of draws every single time, especially if it happens to be like Fuelos or Meows. Perulia doesn't really matter all that much, but those other 2, they are very detrimental to the game plan that we're trying to achieve. So yeah, you got to play 3 Ash Blossom to stop that. And then for the Fiendsmith cards, we're going to be playing 3 Fiendsmith Engravers to search out our Fiendsmith tract, and just provide us with basically a free +1 every single turn, because it's just a free body that always comes out, right? Then for the other cards that complement the Fiendsmith engine, the 1 Fabled Lurrie, which compared to other decks, is actually really surprisingly stronger in this specific version, just because it does also happen to be a fiend type, right? Obviously it's a fiend type, which means that you can discard it off a card like the Gates of Darkworld or your Darkworld Accession or whatever, and then trigger it that way. You don't have to discard it off of a Fiendsmith tract to get its bonus effect. And in a lot of situations, we're not even really discarding this card. We're using something like Fiendsmith Tract to discard a Darkworld monster instead. And then because this deck just does not use its normal summon, we can just normal summon this instead, and it's honestly just perfectly fine. But yeah, one Fabled Lurrie, don't need more than that. And then lastly, the one Lacrima of the Crimson Tears, just so that we can be able to send Fiendsmith in Paradise to the graveyard during our opponent's turn and just set up like another layer of interactions. That's it for the Fiendsmith engine. And then even though the danger monsters aren't as prevalent compared to the Danger Darkworld version, this one is still playing a couple of them because we just need help discarding cards sometimes. So as a result, we're playing the 2 Danger Nessie, 2 Danger Jackalope, 2 Danger Tsuchinoko. You know, these are the cards that either search or provide you with a body every single time. So we don't really want to max out on them because this isn't a danger variant, obviously, and we don't really want to rely on them too heavily, but they're still nice to have just in case. And then for the 1-Os, the 1 Danger Bigfoot, which the popping effect is fine. This is basically just in here so that we can have a potential way to make a card such as our Coach King Giantrainer a little bit more easily. You know, you just bring this out off of like a Jackalope or with its own effect, and then you go for the rank 8, and then if you're close to time, it's pretty important, right? And then the 1 Danger Mothman, which either it summons itself or you're drawing a card off of its graveyard effect. So because its graveyard effect is essentially Darkworld dealings, right? But yeah, you don't need any more than that. I don't really want to put too much of a heavy emphasis on the danger aspect, just because I feel like the Fiendsmith version or the Fiendsmith cards of this deck, they provide so much value that you just don't need to overly rely on the luck aspect of the danger deck or the danger cards normally provide you with. But with that, that's the monster lineup, and now we can finally move on to the spell and trap portion. Now that we're on the spells and traps for the video, we're going to be starting off with 3 The Gates of Darkworld. This is the only card that we're playing at 3, and that's perfectly fine. This is going to be pretty much our main consistency piece, right? As it's the card that allows us to discard all of our fiend monsters to draw 1 card deeper into the deck. And then not only that, it just helps us fill out the graveyard with cards that we don't really want in our hand, like the Reign-beaux, like the graphas, like the Snowws, or even like in some certain situations, like I said earlier, you can discard like a Fabled Lurrie, right, and put it in the graveyard and trigger it that way without having to burn your normal summon. But yeah, this card, you gotta play 3 of it, in my opinion. It's just too good not to play. And then that's it for the 3-ofs. We don't play any 2-ofs for spells, but we do play a lot of 1-ofs, such as the 1 Dark Corridor, 1, 2, 3, 3000. It genuinely doesn't matter. You're only resolving this card once per turn. All that matters is how often you want to see it. And with the addition of the Fiendsmith cards, you don't need to rely on something like this resolving to actually play the game. So yeah, 1 is perfectly fine, but I'm constantly going back and forth on the ratios. Then we're playing 1 Darkworld Accession to be able to fusion summon out Grapha, and just be like a general like nuisance, I guess. But there is like a lot of potential too, right? Because we do actually use the graveyard effect a lot, where it's just able to discard a fiend monster to bring itself back to the hand to trigger cards like our Sillvas or our Snowws, whatever. But yeah, this is mainly just used for fusion grapha. And then we are going to be playing 1 Darkworld Archives this time. It's fine, you know, it's just another card that allows us to draw 2 more cards, but I'm still not the biggest fan of it, if I'm being honest. I'd probably just play like a 2nd Dark Corridor, in my personal opinion. I know not everyone feels like that, but yeah, it's fine. Just like as another slight consistency piece that allows us to discard cards. We're playing the 1 Card Destruction because it's the auto win button in this deck. We're playing 1 Fiendsmith Tract, which should honestly probably be up to 2, maybe even 3 if I'm being honest, just because it really is that good. And like I said earlier, we're still adding Lurrie a large majority of the time. However, we're not going to be discarding the Lurrie in most situations just because we don't need our normal summon, right? So if you have a tract, you would much rather use it to discard like a Snoww or a Reign-beaux or something, you know, just a card that you actually need in the graveyard. And then because we don't need our normal summon, we can still normal summon the Lurrie and still full Fiendsmith combo our opponent. But yeah, this card, it's phenomenal. I definitely think you should be playing more than 1, even though I only have 1 in this specific profile. And then for the other good cards, we're playing the 1 Triple Tactics Talent, because if our opponent decides to hand trap us, we can just punish them for it. And the 1 Call by the Grave to hopefully hit a Droll Lockbird. Maybe, pray. Because if Droll comes down, the game is basically just over for this deck. And that's it for the spells. And then for the traps, just the 1 Fiendsmith in Paradise so that we have another way to interact with our opponent. And with that, that's the spell and trap lineup. And now we can finally move on to the extra deck. now that we're on the extra deck portion of the video, we'll be starting off with the only synchro monster in the deck, being one Chaos Angel, which, I mean, it's just a phenomenal card that's incredibly easy to make thanks to the Fiendsmith cards, right? As we just have to summon out like a Lacrima plus an Engraver, and then boom, we have a free banish pretty much whenever we want. And as for its other effects, like we do play plenty of lights and plenty of darks, so you're going to have some kind of added bonus, whether it's not being able to be destroyed by battle or just unaffected by your opponent's activated monster effects. Like this card is just such a general nuisance for the opponents that you deal with that it seems like a no-brainer to have to include it every time. And that's it for the synchros. And then for the exceeds, we're still playing one number 60 dugares to timeless because sometimes you just need that little extra bit of consistency. We're playing the one DDD Wave High King Caesar, as this is typically going to be like your go-to end piece just to make sure that you don't get hit by Nibiru. And then for the final exceed, one Coach King Giantrainer, literally only in here for time. That's it. That's it for the exceeds. And then for the fusion monsters, we're actually going to be playing one Aerial Eater. So the entire deck is Fiend, right? And you do run into certain situations where you just have to have like a grapha or a Reign-beaux in the graveyard, and this is pretty much like the perfect card to do it, right? As it's incredibly easy to make thanks to the Fiendsmith cards, and just having access or guaranteed access to like a grapha or a Reign-beaux whenever we want is honestly pretty huge and a really underrated aspect of the Fiendsmith engine when it comes to like playing this deck, right? And plus it's still a level 6 Fiend monster, so at some point you're still going to be able to use this card to go into like a Caesar. So even if you don't like make Necroquip Princess, it's honestly perfectly fine. So yeah, this card, it's surprisingly like really strong in this deck. Then speaking of Necroquip Princess, we're still just playing the one, and this is still also another phenomenal card, and it's going to be very easy to trigger as well because you're probably going to have Genta in your hand, so you just summon this, discard the Genta, search gates, and then have a free draw. So yeah, Necroquip, gotta play it. And then we're playing the one Fiendsmith's Desirae. You don't really summon this card. This is basically just in here for the Fiendsmith in Paradise that you will be sending at some point. But if for whatever reason the game goes past turn 2 and 3, then it's a pretty good card that you can summon out pretty easily thanks to the recursion effects of all the Fiendsmith monsters. And then for the final fusion monster, we're playing the one grapha Dragon Overlord or Darkworld, just to help give this deck like this extra little oomph, right? As it's an in-archetype pseudo-negate. Like it doesn't negate monsters, but it's basically like a negate because it changes your opponent's normal spells, normal traps, or monster effects into your opponent discards a card. And by your opponent, I mean you get to discard a card. So this is also like another easy way for you to be able to trigger your Sillva's secondary effects or just any of your other Darkworld secondary effects, which, you know, if those cards do resolve with those secondary effects, the game is basically just over at that point in a lot of situations. And that's it for the fusions. And then for the links, we're playing the one Fiendsmith's Requiem just to be able to have the Fiendsmith engine function, one Moon of the Closed Heaven to turn any 2 monsters into the full Fiendsmith combo, and the one Fiendsmith Sequence to be able to go into our fusion monsters, namely Desirae and the Aerial Eater, depending on what the situation calls for. Then for the other Link 2s, we're playing one Muckraker from the Underworld, which is just like a very phenomenal, like generic card that we can play, as it discards for effect, which means that it will trigger all of your Darkworld cards, and then it's just like another free reborn, right? So if you just need like a big guy that you need to bring out, or if you have like a Genta in your graveyard, you can bring that out, and then you can recycle it by putting it back with like the Reign-beaux and the grapha. And then, yeah, this card just has so many uses, and you can also bring back cards like Chaos Angel, right? Like you banish something with Chaos Angel, you make Muckraker, discard a card like grapha, bring back Chaos Angel, then your grapha gets to trigger to pop, and your Chaos Angel will trigger again to banish another card. And yeah, this card is just super cool in this deck. We're playing one IP Masquerena, which is one of your common end board pieces, and what it goes into is your SP Little Knight to banish a card for free. And then for the final card in the extra deck, we are playing the one Abawaku, the Lightless Shadow, as it just makes for like another phenomenal end board piece, and it's incredibly easy to make too, right? And how you're typically gonna make this first is like you're gonna make the IP Masquerena, and then you're just gonna have like any 2 monsters, and hopefully one of them's a fiend, and then you're gonna link into the Abawaku at some point, and then the Abawaku is going to be able to bring back the IP Masquerena so that you have an SP Little Knight play. And then as for like what your end board should probably look like, it's probably going to be like IP Masquerena plus the Abao plus the Fusion Grapha plus the Wave High King Caesar. And like just on their own, like these cards are just menaces to deal with, right? Because you have a free link into the SP Little Knight for a banish. Depending on what you want to have with the Abao, you either have a free reborn or a free pop. The grapha will be a negate. The High King Caesar is Solemn Morning on legs. And then when you combine that with cards like your Fiendsmith in Paradise in the graveyard, yeah, your opponent's probably just not going to break your board. Let's be real. But yeah, with that, that's the deck profile. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, Please feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys next time. See ya!